Well, hello there, and Merry Christmas. I bring you greetings from Bethany United Church of Christ in Claremont, North Carolina, where no matter who you are or where you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. Today I want to share with you the message that I offered for this congregation on our Christmas Eve. And we, of course, spent time looking at none other than the Christmas story, looking from the Gospel of Luke. And so if you haven't had a chance to reread that story, I would invite you to take a moment to do so at some point throughout the day. And as we hold that story, we also hold our cultural celebrations this time of year around the holiday. And as we rejoice in the gift that entered the world through the baby Jesus, we often spend some time giving gifts of our very own, right? We often incorporate gift giving as part of our celebrations. And the history of giving gifts this time of year, it reaches far beyond, back into the history, far beyond our current celebrations of Christmas. It reaches back, to ancient winter solstice celebrations where people would exchange gifts as a rejoicing in the returning of the light and the lengthening of days. And so there's something really just deeply human about giving gifts this time of year. And whether we give gifts to celebrate the returning of light or as a way of mirroring the joy of the gift found in the Christ child, or simply as a way of sharing from that which we have, giving gifts, it remains a pretty important part to a lot of people's celebrations this time of year. And when we give gifts, it has become our custom to conceal them, right? We wrap it in paper or put it in a bag or put it in a box and then wrap the box in paper. We hide the gift, generally, so that the one receiving it has no idea what they might be getting, right? And some people now, I believe, sort of take this to an extreme, this idea of trying to conceal the gifts. But I'm also, I'll admit, increasingly entertained by the ways that people do this, by the things that they come up with. There was a time where someone might have done that by taking, maybe they had a really small gift, but they put it in a really big box, right? Or they might take that small gift and put it in a small box, but then put that small box in a slightly bigger box and then slightly bigger box, like, the nesting doll type trick. Some folks will do things like, if they have a really light gift, they'll try and make the box extra heavy. So they might put some rocks in the box, put the light gift on top so that people think they're getting something heavy, when in fact the gift itself is rather light. And there are a lot of ways that folks have done this. And yet with all of these ways of trying to conceal gifts, you still have no idea, in the grand scheme of things, you still have no idea what to expect. And then someone started doing things a little bit different, where you actually have a pretty good idea of what to expect is in your gift. So for example, someone might take a dustpan and wrap that dustpan really tightly so that you can see it is a dustpan with wrapping paper on it. So you have an expectation of what it's going to be, right? It's pretty clearly the shape of a dustpan. And yet what folks will do is they might take that dustpan but tape several gift cards to it. So you first have this expectation that it's one thing, and then you realize that there is something so much more. There's something unexpected that happens. With this clever way of wrapping, we have this idea of what we're getting, right? There's an expectation. The shape suggests that we are getting one thing. And yet when we unwrap it, we realize that while the expectation may be partially true, there's also something so much more involved. There's something so much more. It's like the ordinary becomes the extraordinary. To me, this is so much the story of Christmas. The ordinary becoming the extraordinary, expectations being accompanied by unexpected wonders. Take Mary, for example. What would people have expected of her? What would people have expected from a young woman, from a community that was off the beaten path that many would likely consider insignificant? Perhaps they expected a very simple life for someone like Mary. A life that, would certainly be meaningful and impactful to her family and to those who love her, but they probably never expected her life to be one worth writing about. And yet, what happened? She was the mother of God's love incarnate. We still speak of her 2,000 years later. Her story has not faded. She is proclaimed as blessed. No one would have expected such things for Mary. No one would have expected it. And yet, it happened. Consider Joseph. What would people have expected from him? What would they have expected of a carpenter who lived in Nazareth? I would say similarly. They likely would have expected a life that, sure, had importance to those who loved him, but perhaps didn't reach much beyond that circle of influence. And yet, like Mary, the name Joseph remains on our lips. And not just that, last Sunday we read a passage from the Gospel of Matthew, which tells us of the moment when Joseph was visited by an angel. For you see, he had found out that Mary was with child, and he was preparing to do that which was expected of him, that which cultural norms, societal norms expected him to do. And what that expectation was is they expected him to dismiss her, to send her away. Those were the expectations. But the unexpected happened. Joseph effectively adopted this child as his own. No one would have expected such things from a carpenter in Nazareth. And yet, that's exactly what happened. Consider the shepherds. What would people have expected of them? They were deemed low among the societal structure, right? They were dirty just by the very nature of the work that they did. And many people likely saw them more as mere background in sort of the cultural landscape. So no one would have expected much of anything from the shepherds beyond their work and that part that they add to society. And then the unexpected happened. They became the first to hear about the birth of Jesus. From the bottom of society, they were now the first to see the wonders that had happened. And so we still talk about them all these years later. And not only that, we see their lives and the lifting of them up from where society had placed them. We see this as a lesson on the way life should be, the life that Jesus calls us to embrace. One where equality and equity reign and no one is pushed aside or considered less than. No one would have expected the lives of these shepherds to inspire social reconstruction and to embrace a different understanding of importance. And yet here we are. The unexpected happened. Consider the baby Jesus. What would people have expected of him? Mary, Joseph, the shepherds, given their experiences thus far, they likely had some grander expectations for him. But from the outside looking in, what would people have expected of this child? What would they have expected of a child born in a stable, surrounded by animals and shepherds? What would they have expected from a child born to an unwed mother with a carpenter father figure, a child from an insignificant town called Nazareth, where people openly questioned if anything good could come from it? I would guess that many expected his life to be important to those closest to him. But again, like the expectations of Mary and Joseph, they likely would have expected his life to not be one worth writing about. But what happened? The unexpected happened. Yes, all of these things were true about who Jesus was, where Jesus came from. All of these things were true about Jesus that would have led many to see him as insignificant. But all of these things did not define the gift that was being given into the world. He would come to surprise all who would underestimate his value or worth. He would, lift up those who had been cast aside. He would feed the hungry. He would heal the broken. He would encourage the hopeless. He would call the world to love above all else. And in his living, he would remind us that a better and brighter world is always possible. His story is still told. His life is still offering hope and encouragement into the world today. No one would have expected these things from a child born and placed in a manger, but the unexpected happened. Consider each one of us, too, as in this season we ourselves enter the Christmas story. What do people expect from us? What do people expect of you? Just like they would have had expectations for Mary and Joseph, the shepherds, and Jesus, people have their expectations of what our lives will look like, whether that might be good, bad, indifferent. What might people assume will come forth from our lives? Consider that question, but consider this one as well. Are we open to the message of the Christmas story? A message which reminds us that we are called to be so much more than what anyone else might expect. Are we willing to be sources of hope, agents of peace, makers of joy, givers of love? Are we willing to allow surprises to flow through us as we go about that work of doing justice, loving kindness, walking humbly with our God? Are we willing to be so much more than what others may say we are? Are we willing to embrace that which the divine says we are meant to be? Beloved people of God, on that first Christmas, many would have had their expectations about what was unfolding. And yet the night was filled with unexpected wonders in beautiful and transformative ways. May it be so still today. May we believe that goodness can come from the places that we ourselves might least expect. May we believe that blessings can enter our lives and our world from places which may surprise us. May we believe that we are not bound by what anyone else supposes to be true about us, but rather that we too have the potential within to live into the unexpected. For tonight we hear again the story of how God entered the world and upended the expectations. So let us open ourselves anew to the unexpected wonders which still await. So be it, and may it be so. Amen, and have a Merry Christmas.